Hi everybody, welcome back to Read and Reread. I'm Angelia and today I'm going to do my November TBR. So this particular list is kind of a collection of some things that I feel pretty solid about and then some that are just a big assortment of possibilities. And some of the variables are like what new books I decide to purchase or what comes in at the library, and then just my mood from book to book, how far I get, all that kind of stuff. But I'll just talk to you about what I'm thinking about reading, and please chime in the comments and let me know what you think about these particular books or other books that you're super excited to read this month, because I'm really interested to hear what everybody's thinking. All right, so the first category is Nonfiction November. And I learned sadly upon reflecting through my reading journal that I have not read any nonfiction books this year. So usually I read maybe just one or two because I'm just really kind of novel driven. But when I look back over what I have read, well, you know what? I am telling a complete lie. I did read one nonfiction book. It was Ann Patchett's book, which I have, and now I've completely blanked. These Precious Days, I believe. So I did read that. But most of the time, as far as nonfiction goes, I read a lot of online material, magazine articles, essays, stuff like that. But to read a complete book of nonfiction, not that often. Although I have read some really great and memorable pieces. But I do want to read some for Nonfiction November. So I want to remedy this hole in my reading year. So I have 3 books picked out. The first one is Happening by Annie Ernaux. I bought this last week when I was on my trip in one of the independent bookstores that I visited. And after Ernaux won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and I thought about how I didn't know about her, hadn't read any of her books. But now that I'm kind of learning more about her writing, I wanted to try something out. And so I'm going to read this one. It is about, this is sort of a memoir. She's writing in 2000, but reflecting about what happened to her in 1963 when she was 23 years old and had an unplanned pregnancy, and the difficulty that she had obtaining an abortion at a time when it was illegal. Now, that happened in 1963, but apparently that could now happen today if you live in the United States. So I feel like this is one of those books that could be just really powerful when you're looking back, but then you tie it to the present day. And of course, the subject matter sounds pretty intense, but it's a very short book. I think it'll give me a good window into how I feel about her writing style. So I'm going to try this out and see what I think. This is also the first book in the Air November reading invitational kind of thing that Bob the Booker is having. So I want to read this after the book I'm currently reading so that I can participate and comment after I have read it in that, I don't know what you even call it, that video activity. So I'm going to try this out. And then, technically my first book of November is Shrines of Gaiety, because I'll probably finish that book maybe tomorrow or the next day. So I'll be talking about that in Friday Reads, but I can't really qualify it as a TBR because I'm almost done. All right, so back to the nonfiction. My next one is Last Call by Elon Green. I've been looking at this for a while. I keep picking it up in bookstores, and it looked really interesting to me. And a couple of the people that blurb it on the back have written nonfiction books that I did enjoy. David Grann, who wrote Killers of the Flower Moon, and Robert Kolker, who wrote Lost Girls. Those were both nonfiction books that I really enjoyed. And this book, it says, the subtitle is A True Story of Love, Lust, and Murder in Queer New York. This is about a serial killer who preyed on men that were visiting gay bars in the 80s and 90s. It says he preyed upon gay men in New York in the 80s and 90s and had all the hallmarks of the most notorious serial killers, Yet because of the sexuality of his victims, the sky-high murder rates, and the AIDS epidemic, his murders have been forgotten. So this is the story of the last call killer and the decades-long chase to find him. So I don't know if it gets solved in this book. I don't know if there is a like a cold case person who took this up, or if it's the writer has researched and put it together. But apparently at the time that the murders were happening, nobody was stringing it together that this was the same person and that there was a pattern here, that they just they did not hold the victims in high enough regard to investigate it properly. And so I'm very interested to read this book and find out more about it. It also is not a particularly humongous book, so I think it will not be hard to fit it into my reading month. And it just sounds really interesting, and the kind of thing that I really enjoy learning more about. And then the last nonfiction book is one that I feel guilty that I haven't read yet, because I got it for Christmas last year, and it is Fuzz by Mary Roach. This has appeared in my TBR before, but it's coming back. It's coming back hot, and I'm really going to read it this time. So this is actually, let's see, this is a signed copy, but I'm not, that's an interesting signature. I can get the M out of there. I can't really get the R. But Mary Roach writes rather humorous nonfiction if you've read any of her books. I've read a couple of them. My favorite one was Stiff, about cadavers and just different things about bodies after they're dead. And in that book, she wrote about bodies that are donated to science, that are used just for when they're like testing cosmetics and medical procedures. She wrote about body farms that the FBI uses when they put bodies out in different conditions, like out in a field, and to test what happens under different conditions of weather. So that's how they can date how long someone's been dead, or figure out if they were murdered or natural causes and stuff like that. But anyway, so Fuzz is about the interactions between humans and wildlife, and the crazy things that go wrong that are mostly the humans' fault, because we're always encroaching on the habitats of animals. But some of the things that happen here, it says Roach tags along with an animal attack forensics investigator, human elephant conflict specialists, bear managers, and danger tree faller blasters. So that sounds pretty entertaining. And so I feel like my 3 nonfiction books are a nice range in topic matter, tone, etc. And this one's more episodic, like each chapter is a different thing. So this one has a different, kind of layout. So I'm excited about those books. Now, after that, it gets a little bit more hazy, because I have a lot of books that I am thinking about reading for different reasons, and I'm not sure if all of them will actually happen this month, or which ones will shuffle up and shuffle down in my desires of what I feel like reading. But let me just talk about some of these, and let me know if you have read any of these recently, if you have any yay or nay on these particular titles. So this one, this is a book that I am having trouble working up enthusiasm to read, but reading a book club that I'm in has selected it, and a good friend of mine in this club really loved it, and she swears that I'm going to like it. But my obstacle here, this is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Ziven. And the thing that I'm stuck on is that it's about people that work in the gamer industry, and I just could not be less interested in like, if they're going to talk about that at any length, it's going to just put me out. But she swears that it's not really about that. It's about the relationships and the people. And I'm there for that kind of thing. So I need to try it, and I need to just see what happens. But I got it from the library, and I mean, it's getting pretty solid reviews. Has anybody read this book? And I did read The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry that she wrote, and I think I liked but didn't love it. And I wanted to love it because it was set in a bookstore, and I think it's also coming out as a movie. So I don't know. Maybe. And then I still have The Colony that finally came in at the library. And again, I know this is supposed to be really good, and I just haven't been in the right mood, but I really want to just open it up and just start reading and see what happens, because it sounds like I would like it. I just haven't quite, for some reason, I just haven't been picking it up. But I still have it, and I guess nobody is in line for it because they let me renew it, and I still want to try. Then we also have I always like to throw in a classic that I'm meaning to reread, and so I've got The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. I want to go back into my Edith Wharton, especially The Age of Innocence and The House of Mirth. And so I've pulled that to think about reading, and I have a strong feeling I might get into the mood. Somehow it gets into like November, December, first the holidays, and then just winter itself. Kind of, I don't know, it's like a nostalgia factor or something. I like to go back and read old favorites. So I think this one might make the cut. Then another category is a bunch of new releases that I don't have yet, that I want to either purchase or get from the library, and I definitely want to read them, but I just don't know which ones will actually happen in this month. And I don't have these. I'm going to put up pictures of them. But so this is like the speed round here. All right, so we have The Sleeping Car Porter by Suzanne Mayr. Is a historical fiction book, and I have a little note on it. It is about, just tell me how wonderful this sounds. About a secretly queer and, wait, I gotta get rid of this here. Secretly queer and sleep-deprived train porter in 1929 saving up for dental school. How could that not be good? But he has this job. He's sleep-deprived because he has to be on call to help them all day and all night. And they get stuck in a mudslide, and being stalled out on the train, it starts to dredge up people's secrets and memories, including Baxter's. And I guess he finds a postcard that somebody got out of somebody's stuff that it's like kind of a risque queer postcard, and it triggers a bunch of memories about somebody in his past. And so anyway, it just sounds so good, and I feel like I'll probably buy that one. Then also The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell, due to my recent love of Hamnet. And that is about young Lucretia de Medici in the Renaissance era and her early marriage. So I'm very keen on getting hold of that book and reading it. Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I do really like Barbara Kingsolver. I've read quite a few of her books. I haven't read one really recently. I don't think I read the last couple books she did, but this one sounds really great. It's sort of a modern day retelling of David Copperfield with an Appalachian background. And so I'm very interested in acquiring that book. Also, Dr. No by Percival Everrett. I don't really even grasp what this book's about because it sounds so crazy, but after having read The Trees and Telephone, if they said Percival Everett's new book is about like the history of dental floss, I'd just be like, yes, when can I order it? So this book is actually coming out in a couple of days. It's called Dr. No, and it sounds kind of like a caper, like a heist, like a James Bond kind of crazy thing, but then it's gonna touch on race issues in America, or I don't even know. Like, just reading the description, I'm like, what on earth? There's like crazy villains, and I don't even care what it's about. I want to read it. My last category here is thinking about when we get kind of to the end of November with the holidays beginning. And I'm like super excited about the holidays coming up this year, because this is going to be the first year that I go through the entire holiday season as a retired person, not trying to squeeze in all of my holiday spirit and celebrations on spare time and evenings and weekends and when I'm tired after the teaching day and stuff like that, but I can just float around in a holiday cloud of glory all day long. So that includes reading. And so I feel like when we get to the end of the month, I have a couple of things picked out. Now this is, let me see the turkey there. This is an old-fashioned Thanksgiving by Louisa May Alcott, and it's basically a short story with illustrations. And this is a book I've had since I was a kid, and I have not read it though in many, many years. So I think when we get up to around Thanksgiving week, I want to read that to kick off my holiday reading season. And then also, I know that I want to read this year, I want to reread A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I talked about it a little bit when I did my video about books with ghosts, but I want to read it again and maybe watch one of the many, many Christmas Carol movies this year. So that is what I have in mind. I'm going to have a whole bunch of stuff later on about holiday books. I want to share my favorite ones, also books that have Christmas in them, but they're not really Christmas books, and just I have a bunch of ideas. So this will also be my first Christmas as a booktuber. So I haven't done any videos about holidays. So anyway, that's it. I don't know. We'll see what happens as the month rolls on, but please comment about any of this that you wish to, and I hope that you enjoy this. I can't wait to see what everyone else is going to read in November. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody. Goodbye.